Welcome, everyone, and happy Sunday. Thank you for hanging out with me for a few minutes today. As always, this is your host, Beverly Johnson, located here in Huntsville, Alabama. Now, I'm getting ready to say first part of the bar, and if you can't give me the rest, then we cannot be friends. Y'all ready? This year, Halloween fell on the weekend. Wait, you don't know the rest? You don't know the rest? How can you not know this? Okay, I'm gonna say it one more time because I got bars. This year, Halloween fell on the weekend. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So I know everyone's getting ready for the kiddos to come by the house. I know we may be getting ready for trunk or treat in your respective locations. I already have my snacks out on the porch. So just in case some kiddies come by, before I finish, they can grab their little bags and go. So thank you so much for joining me for a few minutes this evening. As always, I am overjoyed that you chose to spend a few minutes with me today. Before I go into this, I do have my door open to look out for the kiddos to come by and get the snacks off the porch. So you may or may not hear my dog do what dogs do. So if along the way you start hearing her bark, she's just defending the home from vicious little kids dressed like Elsa and Black Panther. She's doing what she does. So what we're going to talk about this evening is, hey mama, what we're going to talk about for a few minutes this evening, and all this is leading up into the holidays, is emotional eating. And it's something that we all do subconsciously. No one that I know sets out intentionally to say, you know what, I'm going to become, hey, Belinda. Nobody that I know sets out every morning and say, you know what, I'm going to binge on something. I'm going to destroy my eating patterns. I'm going to derail all of my progress because I don't care about who I am. Nobody does that. So I want you to begin, as we delve into this, to look at this as a need for a mind shift. Because no one that I've worked with, no students that I've come to my class say, you know what, I intentionally become an emotional eater because I just like the feeling of not having control. I like the feeling of guilt. I like the feeling of always feeling like I'm always running behind the 8-ball. No one likes that feeling. So when we talk about emotional eating, it comes at the crux of having a trauma that we have experienced that we may or may not have either recognized or we know how to attack. So when we talk about emotional eating and we talk about trauma can happen on different scales and different levels in our life. So for today's conversation, when I'm talking about trauma, I'm referring to going through things that have triggered your emotions, and you are now using food as a coping mechanism. Because with this type of topic, when we're looking for coping mechanisms, I did not say a bad word. It can show up for some people in different things. So other people may have a coping mechanism with food. Some may have coping mechanisms with alcohol, drug addiction, disordered eating, taking advantage of opioids. So everyone that has struggled with some type of trauma looks for something to cope with the pain. In a lot of cases, you're looking for something to numb the feeling that you're going through. So for today's discussion, it's going to be centered around food. Because when you're sitting there and you're having a moment and you turn to food, no one judges you when you go to the grocery store and get a party platter. No one judges you when you get a cake. No one judges you when you get hot wings or food, or you go and you get the large size meals from a fast food restaurant, because most people assume if you're ordering that much food, it's for an event. Nobody casts any judgment. Now, if you bought equal portions of that in alcohol, then someone will side-eye you. I remember when I was in college, I worked my way through college and I worked at McDonald's. And every day There was a certain individual that would come through the drive-through and he will order like a quarter pounder with cheese with all the works. He supersized it, which means he got the big drink, the big fry, and he get an apple pie. And every day he passed by, he'd have this look of shame in his eye. And every day he would park in the same spot at the restaurant and eat his food and go home. So when we talk about having a coping mechanism, it shows up in all of us differently for different reasons. So for today's discussion, we're going to talk about how emotional eating can sabotage your weight loss. Because when we're also talking about emotional eating, it is more than likely your entry point into how you view exercise and wellness. So I'll start right there, then we'll work our way back around. If you are in a space where you have a disordered eating perspective, or you are an emotional eater, more than likely you have some type of feeling of guilt and shame associated with that. And so if you've had a weekend where you just binged on hot wings or barbecue chicken or macaroni and cheese, you decide to make up for it. Ooh, girl, I guess I got to go to the gym. And so your entry point into the gym is one of guilt and trying to undo the damage. And so if that is how you're entering the fitness realm, 10 times out of 10, you're not going to enjoy the experience because you're looking at it as a form of punishment. And who enjoys going to do anything that is viewed as a source of punishment? Nobody. So if your entry into the fitness realm is, I've had horrible eating patterns, I got to do something to make up for everything that I did over the weekend, you're going to despise going to the gym because it's going to feel torturous. It's going to feel like a punishment, and you're going to give up because you feel like you're beating yourself up for having a weak moment. Now, let's look at this from a different perspective. Imagine if your perspective towards health and wellness was, I deserve to be my absolute best for my family, for my community, and more importantly, for myself. And in order to give my best self, I have to do what's necessary to take care of my mind, my spirit, and my body. So I show up the best way I can be. And exercise is just one component in my toolbox to allow me to show up as my full, healthy self. So when your perspectives change like that, your entry point into fitness changes. So you see the difference when we change our viewpoint. So when you're coming into a space of emotional eating, it impacts everything that you are. So before we go into it, what's the difference between emotional eating versus true hunger? We're going to start with what is physical hunger. And with physical hunger, it slowly develops over time. You know, like you had breakfast, then a few hours later, you may have a desire for a snack because it's been 3 to 4 hours. You desire a variety of food groups where when it's time to eat, you want your plate to be colorful. You want your plate to have your protein, your vegetables. You want all that. And as you're eating, your body will begin to tell you that you're full. It goes, that's enough. And once you have finished eating, you have no guilt about what you've just done. So with a physical hunger, there is no negative feeling about eating. You don't have to go hide. You don't feel guilty about what you've done. Your body tells you that you're full, and it's a hunger that slowly develops over time. Now let's put that next to an emotional moment. Now, if you're an emotional eater, for example, you just got off the phone with your boo or bae, it's been a heated argument, and all of a sudden, after you get off the phone, the moment you hang up the phone, you go click, you start craving something. All of a sudden, your emotions are running hot. You've gone through a 0 to 100. You're looking for that something. That craving comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden, you hadn't thought about chips in 2 weeks. Then all of a sudden, you want chips. Not just any chips. You want salt and vinegar chips because with emotional hunger, it comes about suddenly and you only crave certain foods. So now all day you hadn't thought anything about chips. All day you hadn't thought anything about a snack, but you've gotten off the phone with your boo thing, and now your emotions running hot, and you want some chips. And during that space, you may binge on that food all day or whatever food you pick and not have a feeling of fullness. Because you ever been around some people that say when they eat certain foods, they never feel full, that they can just eat and they can eat and they can eat. Because I remember years ago when Oprah, did the movie Beloved, and it didn't turn out the way she anticipated. And she said, she was reading a review, she was having a moment. And in that moment, she said she remembers taking a spoonful of macaroni and cheese. And by the time she finished the conversation and in her feelings the rest of the day, she ate a pan full of macaroni and cheese by herself because she was binging all day. She had no sensation of being full because an emotion comes along suddenly. And so when we talk about our emotions, it's that thing that with emotional eating, something has triggered you to get to that space. Something has triggered you to want the food or to seek comfort in other things because in that moment, something needs to be addressed. And it's that something that we more than likely usually avoid 10 times out of 10 because your trigger could be relationships. It could be your work. It could be getting a call from your child's school about a project you didn't know anything about. So now here it is at 6 o'clock at night. You got to run to Walmart or Target and get all this stuff together. It could be that you have elderly parents, something going on. It could be something that throws you for a loop. And now you have to figure out how to adjust and pivot. And it's when we have to adjust and pivot that's where we normally struggle because we don't know where to go after that. Now, food is believed to be one way that we work to fill that void. But with that, it's just temporary. You ever had something where you're eating and you just go, ah. That's what food normally does. And if you're in a space where you're being emotionally charged and you're emotionally eating, this is how you know you're in that space and you go, now, I didn't want that. Why did I eat that? I didn't even want to eat that. That's normally when you're in the space of being an emotional eater. Now, understand that being an emotional eater affects men and women. This situation is not a respecter of anyone. So it can be caused by stress. It could be caused by hormonal changes. It could be caused by a variety of things. So the thing is, as we said, understanding that you have to recognize the trigger. You have to recognize what's going on. Years ago, I had a coworker and his mom had gotten sick. And every evening, he would go to the hospital and sit with her. And every evening, because he was sitting there and he was stressed and he was bored, he said every evening he would have some hot fries and a fully loaded soda. And when I say fully loaded, it means all the sugar bells and whistles. And he didn't realize the impact of that because he was just looking for something to comfort him in his uncertainty that he gained 20 pounds. And he said he didn't realize he gained that much weight until he put on his favorite pair of jeans one day and the jeans went, no, sir, we're not going to connect. And the sides were looking at each other. He was like, oh, I didn't know. Because he was in an emotional situation. Because an emotional hunger isn't quelled by eating. Because more likely than not, when you finish eating, you still have those feelings bubbling. You still have those feelings churning. because you have to take a minute to get in your feelings. I know the big thing is get out your feelings, but sometimes you got to kind of get in it and sit there for a minute and process what's going on. There are no prizes for saying that you a savage. There are no prizes for saying that you hard. There are no prizes to say when you are emotionally numb to everything that goes on in your life. Because then you're trying to comfort yourself with food. Another thing that you have to do when you find out that you are an emotional eater, because this topic is near to me because I have the traits to be an emotional eater. And over the course of my divorce and recovery, I found myself comforting myself with Sister Schubert rolls. Sister Schubert, y'all, I was so far in, so deep with Sister Schubert. I think I was eating Sister Schubert rolls with any and everything. Foods that didn't even need a bread. I was eating a Sister Schubert roll. I don't even know why. It was like, ooh, grits. Let me get a Sister Schubert roll. Ooh, ice cream, Sister Schubert roll. Because in that moment, it was comforting me. But what I eventually had to do was I had to get into that moment of getting in my head for a brief second, because sometimes it's dark and scary, for a brief second to figure out what's wrong with me. And to sit with the trigger and say, every time you get off the phone with this person, your emotions go sky high. And every day right now, you're turning to food to comfort you. How about we sit in this ugly space for a minute and grieve? I'm sorry. How about we sit in this moment and figure out why you hate talking to this person? And once I started peeling back the layers, I had to find other ways of coping with my stress. So number two, the way you kind of work through your emotional eating. Number one, realize that hunger isn't being quelled by eating, because the negative emotion is still there. And I wanted to put this right before this topic, right before the holiday season, is that during this holiday season, many of us have foods that are attached to loved ones. And when I say it that way, I mean we have memories attached to those things, to loved ones, where I have a fondness of tea cakes because it reminds me of my grandmother making them. I have a fondness for caramel cakes and sugar cookies because my mom she would make them when we were growing up. So I have an affinity for certain things because it reminds me of certain family members. And so when you're going through this thing and you're coping and you're finding yourself maybe going to a caramel cake or sugar cookies or tea cakes because it is tied to a memory of someone. And so when you're in that space, it becomes important for you to find out other ways to cope with that trigger. Now, I'm not, again, as I always advocate, I am not advocating for starvation on no level. I do not advocate for starvation. This is an awareness of your habits and learning to break the habits. Another thing, and I cannot not say it, to cope with your emotional moments at that time is to get up and move your body. At that time, I'm not saying go do a full workout, but sometimes you may just need to take a quick walk. If you have a pet, a dog, go walk your dog. Go walk to the corner and back. Go and separate yourself from the thing that's creating the emotion, because you're going to have to learn. I had to learn how to diffuse the situation and get out of that moment and process what's happening. So we're talking about emotional eating. It's not just a space of stop eating. It's a space of understanding how you got there, what your triggers are, and then working through maintaining a healthy response to those triggers. So when we're talking about wellness, this isn't a one and done thing. This isn't something that you normally say, well, as soon as I get to 20 pounds and I lost that, I've reached nirvana and it all ends. This is a constant process of growing and evolving. So once you conquer the discipline of your goal, the next level is getting to the space of Why is it that every time I get off the phone or a certain time every day, I want candy? Because I've always been transparent in my own journey where I'll tell everybody I had a love affair. What those little things, the little red hots. I don't know why those little cinnamon candies. I don't know why I had a love affair with them things. But it was something about every afternoon at 2:00. I had to have them little cinnamon red candies. Come to find out, the source of my desire for it was stress. It was either stress or boredom. So it was natural for me to say, you know what, I have these candies. And it wasn't the love affair of the candy, it was me trying to get past the boredom or an action at work that came up. So rather than sit there and continually to eat the candies, I had to work through, if you're bored, what are some other things that you can be doing? And if you are stressed, sit down for a few minutes, a few seconds, practice a mindfulness activity and clear your head. And when I say practice a mindfulness activity, you can have an app. But for me, it was sitting in my desk, putting my earbuds in and listening to classical music for like 5 minutes because I love classical music. And in that moment, it brought me back down. And so my growth and my continued progress was realizing that certain things and certain people were triggers. You can't always get away from your coworkers. You can't always get away from your triggers because your trigger may be sitting next to you. And so in that space, you may have to learn how to circumvent attacking the trigger and calm me down. Y'all, that's my dinner. So just before we leave again, because I see some little kiddos walking up to my door, what is emotional hunger? These are the signs that you know you may be dealing with emotional eating. The craving comes suddenly and abruptly. You only crave certain foods. You will binge on that food and not have a sensation of fullness. You hear some people say that I can eat a whole bag of chips by myself, a family-sized bag of chips by myself, and never get full. And then after you do that, you then have a feeling of guilt or shame about eating. And normally, if you're walking in that type of guilt or shame, you then go sign up at a training facility. You get a trainer like Belinda, and then you're at her facility. And all of this has been prompted because you felt the shame about what you did, and your entry point to fitness is shame. And more than likely, you're not going to stick with the process because your entry point into fitness has been a form of torturing yourself for what you've done. And no part of your wellness journey should be about torturing yourself. Your road to healthiness is not about torturing yourself. It's not about punishing yourself. Instead, it becomes a mental shift to say that I have been assigned a purpose on this earth. And in order to fulfill this purpose, I have to be the best version of myself. And I can't do that if I don't love myself properly, if I don't nurture myself properly. And when that is your entry point into health and wellness, you're more than likely going to stick with it because you understand that you are a gift. You are a divine gift assigned in this season. And if you had a special trinket at home that you cherish and you keep it clean, you make sure nobody hurts it. If you put that much care in a little trinket, or if you wear around from or whatnot, if you put that much care in a trinket, don't you think you deserve the best? You're more valuable than a trinket. So if you're willing to put that much love and admiration into a trinket, I encourage you to put that much love and admiration into yourself. And when you're dealing with emotional eating, there are feelings of shame that will prevent you from doing that because you don't view yourself in a healthy lens. Because emotional eating is normally marred with shame and guilt. Now, what's physical hunger? So we can wrap it up. Physical hunger develops over time. Just like the normal course, you had your breakfast, Hours pass, you have your snack or your lunch. That's just the normal progression of hunger. You desire a variety of food groups. After eating, you have a feeling of fullness, and your mind says, that's enough. And at the end of it, there are no negative feelings about eating. You don't feel guilty. Because I can speak for my journey as an emotional eater. I met every criteria. It came about suddenly. I only craved certain foods. I never felt full when I was eating certain foods. And I had that guilt and shame. And I swore that I'd never do it again. I'd jump on these Insta diets. I always had an Insta diet on deck, and it never stuck because I was attacking the fruit and not the root of the problem. The fruit is whatever you're binging on. The root is the trigger to what's causing you to get there. So when you start feeling those promptings, I encourage you to take a moment and you all of a sudden you want just some chips or something sweet. Think about what happened prior to that. What were you doing prior to that? Was it a phone call? Was it a nasty email? Was it a nasty text from somebody? What was the thing that prompted you to get to that point? And when you start doing that, start your recovery to go, if I'm feeling that, what are some other things that I can be doing? So for those moments, you kind of have to get into your feelings to heal your feelings, to address your feelings, so you can start pivoting from being an emotional hunger person, someone that struggles with emotional hunger, to someone that has a healthy, balanced approach for food. That's all that I have this evening, and I'm gonna start the way I end the way I started. If you know the bars, put it in the chat so we can head on out. You ready? This year, Halloween fell on a weekend. We cannot be friends. I thought I knew y'all. I thought we were better than that because I hadn't seen no, okay. Okay, and for the 5 people that are wondering what I'm talking about, my mind's playing tricks on me by the Ghetto Boys. This year, Halloween fell on the weekend. Me and Ghetto Boys are trick or treat, and yes, the Ghetto Boys. Yes. So for those that don't know, now that's your assignment to go look it up. Have a great evening. Thank y'all if you're taking the kiddos out this evening to trunk or treats or throughout your neighborhoods. Please be careful. Thank you so much. And I will see y'all next week. Bye.